I'm Brandon Woods, and this is Studio Notes for Monday, September 27th, 2021. Today I am in my studio and I am applying isolation coat to three of the pieces that were in my Spatium exhibition. These two are cordyline, and then over here is Arizona desert. And I've had these pieces in my studio for a few days now and haven't even applied the isolation coat, let alone varnished them yet, because it's been it's been a struggle for me to do that, because I have so many other things that are kind of pulling me in, 100 different directions. There's so many different things that I want to be working on, like yesterday building panels, or continuing to work on my the dimensional panel that I'm also working on, or getting all the post-production finished for these videos so that I can get them posted and try to get them posted a little bit closer to the day that I'm actually recording them. But I need to apply this isolation coat to these pieces, and that's what I'm going to do today. I think that the reason that I haven't done it in, I guess, really the past, the show came down at the very end of July, so all of August and now pretty much all of September, past 2 months, is that doing this part of the work on these pieces feels more like catching up than it does moving forward, moving ahead. It's important to finish, and to finish well. I had really wanted to have these pieces totally finished, varnished, everything, before they went up in my exhibition, and I ran out of time. And there's sort of a story there of why I ran out of time, but I'm going to save that for a different day. What I wanted to say today is that this brings me to my third rule. So my first two rules: do what you love, make good work. My third rule, and this is a doozy, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for not being yesterday who you are today, and forgive yourself for not being today who you want to be tomorrow. You are everything and everyone that you need to be right now to become that person that you want to be tomorrow. You are enough. And that rule is partially inspired by the artist David Cho, from if you listen to his interview with Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. It's about a year ago. It's a fascinating episode, but it really starts with David Cho's kind of struggles with I guess a lot of like the self-doubt and just different demons that kind of haunt us all as artists, or at least haunt several of us. What is that called? It's almost like fear of being a charlatan or something like that. There's a specific term for it, it's escaping me. But I realized that part of what it was just keeping me from just finish the pieces, put the isolation coat on there, varnish them, let them be done. One is that working on these pieces, I love working on them, and so it's hard for me to want to stop working on them kind of ever, but also just the almost like the fear of being found out, that that the work wasn't varnished whenever it was in the show, as if that's to say that because it wasn't varnished, it wasn't finished, so the work that I had up in the show wasn't finished, so it wasn't real or something. I mean, it's trying to follow that rabbit hole down as far as it'll go. It can really can almost become a healthy exercise, because it's easy to see then how ridiculous it can get and how fast it can get that way. You just have to confront those ideas, those ghosts, as I put it. And I'll talk more about ghosts in a different episode. But today I'm going to apply this isolation coat to these pieces, and just this is my way of moving forward. So I got my super wide 8-inch Da Vinci Duro Plus brush. I absolutely love these brushes. They are incredibly high quality, and I just like to dry them out a little bit, because I just washed this, but you can see on here, I don't know how close I can get to the camera, you can see they have these little holes in here. These are specifically designed for artists who are going to be washing out their brushes frequently, and then reusing them more. Oh, I think it lost my active tracking. Hold on. There we go. So, and I am using gloss glazing liquid and isolation coat. I like to use both of those together because I feel like the isolation coat by itself is just a little bit too thick, and it just dries too quickly for the way that I paint, or for just, I guess, the way that I'm used to working, because I've been working for years on perfecting my awesome sauce painting medium. Awesome sauce. Did it lose my active tracking again? Alright, so I've been working for years on my awesome sauce, trying to perfect the recipe of different mediums combined together to achieve what is about the closest thing that I can get to oil paint that has been thinned with liquid fine detail. That's the paint that I used in my I guess in undergrad, and then for my first big solo exhibition, which was in Absence. And that was also in the Emporium, where I had my Spatium exhibition. And that was 10 years ago. 10 years ago this month, actually. And, So I really like painting with, well, I really liked, I guess, painting with oils, but I just don't like the cleanup, and I feel like there's more that I can do with acrylic in terms of all the different mediums and different colors, different effects. I have been seeing more and more of the same like effect paints coming out in oils, like interference colors and things like that. But I've nearly mastered the mixture. I've nearly gotten that mixture figured out, so that my awesome sauce is really awesome. And I'm really used to having a good amount of working time, working in thin layers, and being able to build up color through glazes and washes. A wash soaks into the surface. A glaze is a thin coat on top of the surface. And I have to take that into consideration a little bit whenever I'm mixing together the acrylic glazing liquid and the isolation coat medium that Golden makes, because the isolation coat by itself, you only have to wait 24 hours before you can start varnishing the piece. That's really cool. Mixing in the glazing liquid, though, it takes a little bit longer. You have to give the work a little bit longer to dry before you can varnish it with confidence that you're doing it correctly. And so this is, I think this is well coated. This will be the first coat that I put on this one. And I'll probably put 3 coats of isolation coat on here, at least before I put anything else, or before I varnish it. Okay. I'm still going to want, even though these brush strokes will disappear, sometimes I wonder if they do, if invisible brush strokes can still affect the reading of a piece, like visible brush strokes definitely can. Okay. So pull this table out of the way. this guy. I love the colors in these, and especially if there's a lot of light in this space, man, they just explode. They're so beautiful. I'll give these about 4 hours to before I add another coat. One of the really cool things about acrylic too is that you don't really have to worry that much about the lean over fat rule. With oil painting, if you paint real thin glaze over thick oil paint, the oil paint underneath might never dry. But if you paint a thin glaze of acrylic over thick acrylic paint, then it will take the thick acrylic paint underneath longer to dry, but eventually it will dry. So eventually the entire piece will be thoroughly dry. There's definitely some issues that can arise from painting lean over fat with acrylic in terms of your paint might just totally come off, which was a problem that I dealt with whenever I was making this one, actually. Some of the early layers I didn't give long enough to dry. They started pulling off, and so I had to sand it down, start over again, basically. So, it's not always the best idea to do that, but you still kind of have that. You don't have such the restriction as it's more of a spirit of the law than letter of the law type thing. All right. And that, I think, is going to be it for me today for studio notes. So until next time, I want to encourage you to do what you love, make good work. I'll talk to you soon. Oh, it's called imposter syndrome. That's the term I was looking for.